The numbers were dancing on my screen like pieces in a poorly planned game of chess. I rub my eyes, exhausted. It's 7 o'clock in the evening and I'm still buried in reports. I shut down my laptop with a sigh that carries the weight of the last 12 hours of work. The startup I helped launch is growing faster than we expected. A blessing and a curse, all in one. At 32, I've spent more nights at the office than I'd like to admit. I take the last sip of my cold coffee and grab my phone. 3 missed calls from my mom, a message from my partner about tomorrow's meeting, and a notification from the condo app about yet another extraordinary assembly called by Patricia Davis. Patricia. Just thinking about her gives me a twinge in my temple. The self-proclaimed queen of our condo. Every place has someone like that, right? The one who turns any little detail into a life or death issue. In her case, someone with the power to make everyone else's life hellish. Subscribe to the channel and hit like to get more stories like this. I get home and the automatic system softly turns on the lights. My duplex penthouse is my sanctuary, my safe harbor after all these corporate storms. Floor-to-ceiling windows show the city like a lit-up painting. I picked every detail of this place with care. The dark wood floor contrasting with the light furniture, the open kitchen I almost never use, the floating staircase that leads to the upper level. I leave my briefcase and keys on the marble counter and head straight for the terrace. This space is what sold me on the apartment. 120 square meters of private outdoor area, complete with a garden, a pool, and a breathtaking view. It cost a fortune, but every penny was worth it. On good days, this place reminds me why I work so hard. I kick off my shoes and loosen my tie. The pool water reflects the night sky, inviting after a hot day. I decide to take a quick dip before dinner. Nothing like water to wash away the day's stress. Palms Residence isn't just a condo, it's a status symbol. Located in the heart of the city's most upscale area, with 24-hour security, a spa, a state-of-the-art gym, and an exclusive restaurant for residents. The kind of place where imported cars are as common as bikes in other neighborhoods. I've only been here for 8 months. I'm the new rich among old money, the outsider in a well-established territory. Patricia made sure to make that clear from day one, in the social elevator. "Oh, you must be the tech guy who bought the Zimmerman penthouse. Interesting." Her condescending tone said everything I needed to know about her. While swimming, I mentally replayed the emails exchanged with the condo board over the past week. Patricia, as president, vetoed my plan to install solar panels on the terrace. "It wrecks the building's aesthetic," was the official explanation. The unofficial one was obvious. I wasn't part of her inner circle. I didn't play by her rules. The sound of high heels on my terrace floor suddenly pulls me out of the water. I turn to find Patricia standing there, arms crossed, with an expression of displeasure carved on her perfectly made-up face. "Mr. Thompson, I need to talk to you about your behavior." I climb out of the pool, baffled. No doorbell rang, no heads up. She's just in my private space as if she has every right to be here. "How did you even get in here, Patricia?" I ask, grabbing a towel. "That doesn't matter now. We've gotten complaints about too much noise coming from your penthouse. Parties until late. Loud music." I let out an incredulous laugh. "Excuse me? I just got off work. I spend more time at the office than here. Parties?" She steps forward a few paces, pulling a fancy phone out of her purse. "I've got records of complaints from the past 3 weekends. And now I find you swimming at 10 at night, disturbing the neighbor's peace. Patricia, you're on my terrace without permission, accusing me of something I didn't do. I think you're the one breaking the rules here." Her face hardens. "Don't use that tone with me, young man. I've been the board president for 5 years. I know the bylaws better than anyone. Then you must know you're trespassing on my property right now." She smiles, that look you get when you're used to winning. "As president, I have the authority to inspect any areas that could be problematic for the condo, not without notice or proper authorization. Now please, leave my home before this escalates any further." Instead of backing down, Patricia walks around the terrace, snapping photos on her phone. These modifications weren't approved by the board. This barbecue area isn't in the original plans. I feel the anger rising. The grill came with the apartment. It's on the purchase documents. She ignores me and keeps taking pictures. When I step closer to ask her to leave again, she dramatically backs off. "Don't come any closer. I feel threatened," she shouts as she dials something on her phone. "Hello, police? I need help right away. I'm being threatened by a man at Palms Residence, penthouse 1401. I can't believe what I'm hearing. She broke into my home, falsely accusing me, and now she's calling the police with made-up charges?" I realize this isn't just a simple neighbor spat. Patricia is deliberately trying to hurt me, and it doesn't look like she's going to stop here. He's lost it, probably on something. Yes, I feel in danger. Patricia keeps her eyes locked on me as she feeds the operator with her wild story. I'm Patricia Davis, president of the Palms Residence Board. This man is preventing me from leaving. I stand still, trying to process what's happening. Every word she says is a complete twist of reality. I'm in my own home, wearing nothing but swim shorts, while this woman paints me as some kind of aggressor. Patricia, this is ridiculous. You're deliberately lying to the police, and that's a crime. She sets the phone aside for a moment. See? He's threatening me. Please send someone quickly. And hangs up. The silence that follows is heavy. We're in a bizarre standoff. Me, wet and half-dressed on my terrace. Her, perfectly composed in her beige suit like she's heading to a business meeting. Why are you doing this? I ask, genuinely confused. People like you need to learn their place, Mr. Thompson. This condo has standards, traditions. Do you think you can buy your way anywhere with your tech money? There are hierarchies that take years to build. Our conversation is suddenly interrupted by the intercom. The reception announces that the police have arrived. Patricia smiles triumphantly. I'll go grab a t-shirt, I say. No, you're staying exactly as you are. I want the officers to see you like this. Riled up. This is ridiculous. I'm in my own house. A house you should have never bought, she snaps, with a venom that surprises me. While I wait, I quickly send a message to William Hayes, the condo legal advisor I met at one of the assemblies. We aren't close, but I need an impartial witness right now. The private elevator opens directly into the lobby of my penthouse. Two officers step in, an older man and a young woman. Their expressions subtly change as they take in the luxurious surroundings. Good evening. We received a call about a threat, says the older officer, identifying himself as Sergeant Martinez. Patricia rushes toward them like an actress chasing an Oscar. Thank God you're here. This man has been intimidating me, stopping me from leaving. I came for an official inspection as board president, and he turned aggressive. I take a deep breath, trying to stay calm. Officers, I'm Michael Thompson, owner of this apartment. This woman entered my home without permission while I was swimming. There was no invitation, no warning. When I asked her to leave, she started snapping photos of my property and then called you with false accusations. The young officer, identified as Officer Torres, looks around. Ma'am, did you enter without an invitation? As board president, I have the authority to inspect common areas and check on complaints, Patricia replies, full of confidence. This is a private terrace, part of my penthouse, not a common area, I explain. And there was never any complaint. I got home less than half an hour ago. Sergeant Martinez seems uneasy with the situation. Mr. Thompson, can you show us any document to prove that this is your home? I head over to the living room and come back with my ID and the property deed. The officers review the documents while Patricia continues her performance. He's modified structures without approval, and he regularly hosts loud parties. We have records of multiple complaints. Records that were never presented to me, I counter, because they don't exist. I'm an executive at a tech company, working about 12 hours a day. I don't have time for parties. The intercom rings again. It's William Hayes, the condo legal consultant. I ask reception to let him up right away. I asked Mr. Hayes to come as an impartial witness. He knows the condo bylaws and can confirm that Mrs. Davis has no authority to enter private residences without the owner's written permission or a judicial warrant in extreme situations. Patricia pales slightly. This is unnecessary. We're just clearing up a neighborly misunderstanding. A misunderstanding that involved calling the police with false accusations? I ask, feeling more confident now. William arrives a few minutes later, visibly surprised by the scene. Greeting the officers, he quickly grasps the situation. Officers, I can confirm that according to the Palms residence regulations, even the board president doesn't have the authority to enter private units without prior written consent from the owner or a judicial order. Patricia tries to interrupt, but William continues. Any inspection must be scheduled with a 72-hour notice and a formal justification handed to the owner. Sergeant Martinez nods in understanding. It seems we have a misunderstanding here. Mrs. Davis, did you have authorization to be here? Patricia hesitates, looking insecure for the first time. As board president, That's not an answer to my question, interrupts Sergeant Martinez. Did you have permission to be here? Technically, I didn't have written permission, but then you're not only breaking the condo rules, but you might also be trespassing, says Officer Torres. Patricia immediately switches tactics. I was truly concerned about everyone's safety. We got reports of erratic behavior, possible drug use. That's defamation, I exclaim. I have witnesses who saw me at the office all day. My partner, my assistant, 20 employees saw me leave less than an hour ago. William steps in again. Officers, as the condo's legal consultant, I must inform you that there's no official record of any complaint against Mr. Thompson in our files. Any complaint should follow a specific protocol and proper documentation. Patricia glares at William with barely contained fury. Hayes, you work for the board. You're on the wrong side here. I work for the condominium as an entity, Mrs. Davis, not for any specific individual. My job is to ensure everyone follows the bylaws. Sergeant Martinez sighs. Mr. Thompson, would you like to file a formal complaint against Mrs. Davis for trespassing? Before I can answer, I think about the consequences. A legal battle would be exhausting and drawn out, and Patricia clearly has influence. But letting this go would only give her more encouragement. Officers, before I decide, I'd like to show you something. I walk over to a discrete panel on the wall and activate the security system for my penthouse. An embedded screen lights up, showing multiple angles of the terrace and entrance. When I bought this apartment, I had a full security system installed. Every inch of this penthouse is monitored and recorded 24/7. I have audio and video recordings from the past 30 days. Patricia's face turns to a mask of horror. That's illegal. You can't record people without their consent. William shakes his head. Actually, Mrs. Davis, it's totally legal to record inside your own home. Mr. Thompson is protected by private property law. I select the recording from the last 40 minutes and play it on the screen. The evidence is crystal clear. Patricia sneaking in through the terrace door while I'm swimming, her aggressive approach, her false accusations, and her call to the police with made-up claims. The officers watch the recording in silence. When it finishes, Sergeant Martinez looks at Patricia with obvious disapproval. Mrs. Davis, the recording completely contradicts your version of events. You not only trespassed on private property, but you also made a false emergency call. A serious offense. Patricia is livid. That was edited. He manipulated the footage. The system stamps each recording with encrypted date and time data, I explain. Any tampering would be caught with forensic analysis. I'm ready to have the recordings examined if you need. Officer Torres steps closer. Ma'am, we're going to need you to come with us to the station for more questioning. Subscribe to the channel and hit like to get more stories like this. Patricia steps back, her certainty visibly crumbling. This is absurd. You can't be taking this seriously. This new rich. Do you even know who I am? My husband is a personal friend of the mayor. Sergeant Martinez remains impassive. Mrs. Davis, the law applies equally to everyone, regardless of who they know. William chimes in politely. Officers, may I suggest we try to resolve this without escalating it further? Mr. Thompson could consider not filing a formal complaint if Mrs. Davis agrees never to repeat this behavior and issues a formal retraction to the board. I look at Patricia, who seems both furious and scared. Part of me wants to take her down completely, but another part knows that going to war with her could make my life in the condo miserable. I'm willing to consider that option, I finally say, but on a few conditions. Patricia folds her arms defensively. What conditions? First, you will never enter my property without an explicit invitation. Second, any attempts to block my condo projects without a valid technical reason stop immediately. Third, I want a formal written apology that will be registered in the board's minutes. I will never be humiliated like that, she exclaims. Sergeant Martinez checks his watch. Mrs. Davis, the alternative is to come with us to the station right now. The choice is yours. After a tense moment, Patricia gives in. Fine. It looks like I have no choice. She glares at me with palpable hatred. I'll accept your terms, Mr. Thompson. But this isn't over. The officers ask that we both sign a preliminary commitment form. William, acting as our legal consultant, offers to draft a more detailed agreement the next day. After the formalities, Patricia is escorted out of my apartment, casting one last venomous look as she goes. Finally alone with William, I let out a deep breath. Thanks for your help, I say. I didn't expect things to go this far. William gives a sad smile. Unfortunately, it isn't the first time Patricia has abused her position. It's just the first time we have concrete evidence. He pauses. I have to warn you, Michael. She's not the kind of person who forgets or forgives easily. I'm ready for that, I reply, even though I'm not entirely sure I am. In the days that follow, I save the recordings in several secure locations. My gut tells me Patricia isn't going to accept defeat easily, and I was right. 3 days after the intrusion, I start getting anonymous messages. Veiled threats, hints about accidents that might happen. Later that same week, I noticed condo security watching my every move with suspicious intensity. One morning, I find my car with a flat tire in the private parking lot. Small incidents that on their own might seem like coincidences, but together form a disturbing pattern. The last straw comes when Robert Anderson, a well-known lawyer who often represents Patricia in personal matters, sends me a cease and desist letter demanding all the recordings of the incident be destroyed, claiming they invade her privacy. William warns me, "They're trying to intimidate you, Michael. Anderson is known for his aggressive tactics, but legally, you're in the clear. The recordings were made on your own property." Pressure ramps up when I receive a summons for an extraordinary board meeting. The topic: review of security and privacy policies in private units. It's clear that Patricia is rallying her board allies to create rules that stop me from keeping my security system. That's when I make a crucial decision. If Patricia wants war, I'll give her a war she can't win: the war of public opinion. I carefully edit the recordings to protect sensitive information about my home, while keeping the whole sequence of the intrusion, the false accusations, and the confrontation with the police intact. I add explanatory subtitles and, after consulting my own lawyer, post the video on social media with the title, "Abuse of Power in a Luxury Condo, When Board Presidents Think They're Above the Law." The reaction is immediate and overwhelming. Within 24 hours, the video gets over 1 million views. Local newspapers start contacting me for interviews. Other residents of Palm's residence begin sharing their own negative experiences with Patricia. An avalanche of comments supports my position, criticizing her behavior and the board's long-standing complicity. Patricia tries to retaliate, claiming the video was manipulated, that she's being persecuted, but the evidence is undeniable. The social prestige she spent years building quickly crumbles. The condo board calls an emergency assembly. The meeting room is packed, with residents who normally wouldn't get involved in collective decisions. The mood is one of widespread outrage. William Hayes runs the meeting with impeccable professionalism, making sure everyone gets a chance to speak. Patricia shows up accompanied by Robert Anderson, both looking grim. When it's finally my turn, I get right to the point. This isn't just a dispute between neighbors. It's about abuse of power, systematic intimidation, and a board that allowed one person to use their position for personal gain and harassment. I'm not the first to be hurt by this, but I hope to be the last. The vote is almost unanimous. Patricia is immediately removed from both the presidency and the board. New elections will be held in 30 days, with clearer rules on transparency and limits on authority. In the weeks that follow, the case grows even bigger, with other condos around the city starting to review their own bylaws, using the Palms case as an example of what not to do. Unable to deal with the public humiliation and subsequent social ostracism, Patricia puts her apartment up for sale less than 2 months later. I later learned from William that she and her husband moved to Portugal, where they apparently had family connections. What's most surprising is what happens next. I'm invited to join the committee that will revamp the condo bylaws. My background in corporate governance from my startup turns out to be highly valued by the other residents. For the first time, I feel like I truly belong here. Today, nearly a year later, Palm's residence is a different place. It's more transparent, fairer, with decisions made collectively rather than imposed by a small elite. My solar energy project wasn't just approved. It's been expanded to include common areas, generating significant savings for everyone. Sometimes, when I'm out on the terrace watching the sunset, I remember that surreal night when a woman walked into my home determined to intimidate me and ended up losing everything she valued. I don't take pleasure in her downfall, but I learned a valuable lesson. When we stand up to injustice with truth and transparency, even the most powerful can be held accountable. Justice doesn't always come from courts or the authorities. Sometimes it shows up simply when we decide not to stay silent in the face of abuse. When we choose to expose the truth under the light of day so everyone can see it for themselves. In the end, that exposure, more than any legal battle, was what really made the difference. Subscribe to the channel and hit like to get more stories like this.